Okay, last week we talked about the positive mitzvah of Shabbat. We talked about Kiddush on Friday night. There's also Kiddush that's recited again on Shabbat morning. So let's take a look here. It should be enough for everyone.
Sure.
A lot more. Page 22. Yeah, I got a lot. Let me just check. Well, sharing is terrible. Let me just check. Page 22. This is the Kiddush for Shabbat morning. Kiddush for Shabbat morning is a little different. There's only one actual bracha, only one actual blessing, and that's the blessing over the Borei Priyagach and the blessing over wine. It's Shabbat already started, so we're not really not inaugurating Shabbat or ushering in Shabbat. We're just declaring before we eat on the Sabbath day that this is a special meal, this is a special day. And so we recite verses pertaining to Shabbat, and then we say a blessing over wine, and we drink that wine together with our meal. Whereas Friday night, the Kiddush is actually like an act of sanctification. It's endowing the day with sanctity. It's declaring the day to be holy. Shabbat day, the day's already holy, right? It's already done. It's already happened. You'll notice, on page 23, there's an English translation that the first paragraph of the Shabbat day Kiddush is from Exodus. The children of Israel should keep Shabbat, observing Shabbat throughout their generations as an everlasting covenant. It's a sign between me and the children of Israel for all time. In the 6 days, the Lord made the heavens and the earth, and on the seventh day he was finished and he rested. So it's this is the Sabbath of the covenant. This is the Sabbath of the Torah. It's the theme of Shabbat day. And whereas on Friday night, we just flip back to page 12, the verses that we recite at the beginning of Kiddush are, it was evening, was morning, the 6th day. So the heavens and the earth will finish all their complement. Thus, on the seventh day, God had completed his work, which he had undertaken, and he rested on the seventh day. So Friday night, the theme is one of the Sabbath of creation. It's the seventh day on which God rested. That's the theme of Friday night. On Shabbat day, our theme switches to one of the Shabbat of the covenant, the Shabbat of the Torah, the Jewish people observing Shabbat at the foot of Mount Sinai and living our lives as Torah-observant Jews, with Shabbat as a day of rest is in the fabric of our lives of Torah and Mitzvah. As the day progresses towards the evening, as Shabbat ends, the waning moments of Shabbat, the theme of the day switches to the Shabbat of redemption, the Shabbat of the world to come, which is described, Shabbat is described as an Ein Olam Haba, a taste of the world to come. It's a day without competition, a day without work, a day of living in harmony with other people and harmony with the world. That is what the world to come will be like, and so Shabbat is a foretaste of that, and that's the theme of Shabbat afternoon, as Shabbat is ending. We see that, so a little bit it's seen in the Kiddush, the Friday night Kiddush versus the Saturday morning Kiddush. There is no Kiddush for the afternoon, but some of the liturgy of the afternoon expresses that. You see it clearly, we don't have to show it all together. See the read. I don't have enough with English translations here to show you. So we'll look at it when we get to Tefillah, we'll get there. So you'll see it as well. I'll just say it, and if it makes sense for you, you'll look it up yourself, and if it doesn't make sense for you, don't worry about it, and we'll get there eventually, and we'll see it in the books. But if those of you who've begun or to pray regularly, you'll know that the Amidah, the core of Jewish Tefillah, is comprised during the week of 19 blessings. It's the same in the morning, afternoon, evening, 6 days a week, the 19 blessing Amidah, the standing devotional prayer. On Shabbat and holidays, it's different, that the middle blessings, where we request things from God, are all taken out, and they're replaced with one blessing that talks about the sanctity of the day. Right? So the beginning three are always the same, and the last three are always the same, almost every day of the year. Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are a little different, but basically the beginning three and the last three are always the same. And during the weekdays, the middle blessings are 13 requests for things, and those 13 are all taken out and replaced by one blessing that talks about the nature of the day on Shabbat and holidays. So instead of 19 blessings, it's 7 blessings. That middle blessing that speaks of the special sanctity of the day, the special nature of Shabbat, is different Friday night, Saturday morning, and Saturday afternoon. So Maariv, the evening tefillah, the evening prayer Friday night, the theme of that middle blessing is the Sabbath of creation. God rests on the seventh day. Saturday morning, we say Shachrit on Shabbat morning, that middle blessing, the theme of that is V'shamru b'nei Yisrael Shabbat, the Jewish people shall keep the Shabbat. It's the Sabbath of the covenant, the Sabbath of our lives, living the Torah, the Sabbath of the Torah. And the theme of Shabbat afternoon, Mincha on Shabbat, that middle blessing, the theme is Atah Echad V'Shem Echad. It's God's unity and being reflected on the Sabbath. It's about redemption, it's about the world to come. It's the Sabbath as a taste of the world to come. So we say Kiddush Friday night, we say Kiddush Saturday morning. We also eat 3 meals on Shabbat. A meal, in this case, means a meal with basically with bread. Certainly Friday night and Saturday day, we have to eat meals with bread. We have 2 loaves of bread at each of these meals. This is called challah, right? It doesn't have to be challah, really any loaf of bread. It has to be a complete loaf. It's not sliced, it's not cut. Sometimes if you bake rolls together, they kind of stick together as they're rising on a tray. That's not so good. It should be, because then when you pull them apart, it's like they're no longer complete, have to be complete, intact loaves. And there are 2 of them Friday night and another 2 of them Saturday morning. This commemorates the double portions of manna that ascended in the wilderness in honor of Shabbat, which doesn't quite mix because they got double portion on Friday, so they wouldn't have to collect manna on Saturday. So we have 2 on Friday night and 2 on Saturday. So that doesn't quite reenact the experience, right? They had 2 that lasted them for the full 24 hours. Okay. But it also commemorates this element of Shemor and Zechor, okay? The positive and the negative, the remembering the Sabbath day, all the positive things we do to celebrate Shabbat, and the Shemor and the restrictions, the things that we refrain from doing. So Friday, let's look at Friday night liturgy. Let's go through it. Page 4. When we gather around the table, the first thing we typically do is we sing this 4-stanza psalm or hymn called Shalom Aleichem, which welcomes the angelic presence into our homes on the Sabbath. There are a number of different melodies. Some people have the custom of singing each stanza 3 times. Some people sing each stanza twice. Some people sing each stanza only once. Some people skip the last stanza, some people skip the second to last stanza, some people skip the last 2 stanzas. There are then different customs. In our family, we sing all 4 stanzas just once, and that's where we begin our meal. This tefillah, Rabbon Shel Kol Olamim, on page 5, we don't say in our family, but many people do. It's pretty long. We do sing Eshet Chayil on page 9. This is the last chapter of the book of Proverbs. It speaks of a righteous woman. It was put here in the Friday night liturgy because I think the woman is supposed to be the Sabbath herself. The presence of the Sabbath in our communities is sort of personified, or was assumed to be personified as a feminine presence, and that was linked to this chapter of the book of Proverbs. I once traveled to Virginia with my wife, before I could spend the Shabbat with my sister-in-law who lived at the time in this somewhat rural community in Virginia, and when I guess she invited some neighbors to come by and watch us have Shabbos dinner, because that was like an exotic cultural experience for them to come and watch. So they kind of trooped over before we said, and they sat off to the side, Sarah and I sat at the table, and we sang Shalom Aleichem, and then we now we're going to recite the last chapter of the Proverbs, and there's a little this chapter I have to be at the table for this. This is like, I'm all about this. The Proverbs 31 woman or whatever. I'm all about her. She had she was like important to her in her life, and so she came over to join us for the. But she's I think many people also sing it with the intention of being praise for the woman of the house and all that she does to keep the household in order. My relative who sort of grew up in a somewhat broke. It was I'm trying to be basic. I don't want to sort of understanding, but somebody told me that growing up in a home with parents who were his mother and his stepfather were in the process of divorcing for like typically like most of his childhood. And he said there were weeks when they were not speaking terms with each other, but the stepfather always sang, Yishmael always sang this chapter of Proverbs and appreciation of his wife and all that she did for the household. She's a very active woman. She engaged in commerce and she makes things and she travels and buys and sells and is a pretty important person. Page 11 is a parental blessing for children. My wife and I each bless our children. We walk around the table, and for each of our kids, we put our hands over their heads and recite the blessing for son or for daughter for each of our children. This time of year, a bunch of them are in bed by the time dinner comes around, so that they miss out. But when they're awake, they all get the blessing. And I guess in some families, the parents say that the kids line up and come to the parents. So I'd like to maybe transition to having that kind of family, but the kids are not going to do that yet. I spent Shabbat with my bar mitzvah weekends with my cousin. My cousin, he married a woman who was one of 10 siblings. So her parents have at this point, 70, 80 children and grandchildren. So when the whole family gets together for a bar mitzvah weekend, it's 15 minutes of this long line of children and grandchildren all getting blessings from their parents, and their parent and grandparent, and they're all around. It's really, really beautiful thing to see. And then on page 12 is Kiddush, which we talked about last week. And then the different versions of Kiddush, for if it's a festival, if it's a holiday, if it's Rosh Hashanah, Kiddush 22, Kiddush for Shabbos morning, Kiddush for a holiday morning, and then, I guess it's not in here, I must be the other piece that's missing is, probably it's the end. If you look at check. Yeah, look on page 91. There's look at page 93. It's a sort of odd order, but before eating the Sabbath meals, right? So these are meals that, I guess in a significant meal, a holiday meal, a Sabbath meal is a meal that is eaten over bread. Okay, we break bread, that gives the meal significance, and so Friday night, a meal with bread, as I mentioned, 2 loaves of bread. Saturday morning, a meal with bread, 2 loaves of bread. And so we wash our hands every time we eat bread. There's a blessing for washing hands, and then we say the blessing for the bread itself. So on page 93 is a blessing for washing hands. Right? It's the mitzvah blessing, Asher Kishanu Tzivanu Al, and then Mitzivat Yadayim, the washing of hands. And then back on page 91 is the blessing for bread. Hamotzi lechem ha'aretz. We don't talk between washing hands when we actually say the blessing for bread. The reason why is because we wash our hands, keep our hands pure, we purify them, we clean them, we're going to eat our bread. The assumption is that if you're not paying attention to what you're doing, you can't assume that your hands are so clean. Because maybe you're scratching yourself, you have a little itch, or whatever, you're touching something that would make you need to wash your hands again. So in order to be sure that you're still able to make the blessing and not have to wash your hands, we don't say anything, so in theory we're focusing on our hands. If you have to say something, you can say something like pass the salt, or where's the challah, or eat the knife, or we're in my seat. I mean, you can say whatever you want, but the point, as long as you are actually cognizant of your hands, and you're not, but like if you had a Shabbat, you'll notice that everyone, as they go to wash their hands, they stop talking. And then come back to the table, and everyone's sitting quietly. And then somebody at the table will make a hamotzi, will recite the bracha, the bracha, the eating bracha, the eating blessing for the bread, and then cut the bread and distribute it to those at the table. Yes?
Maybe I'm ahead of where you're going to get to, but the salt.
Yeah.
With the challah. People ask me why, and I don't know.
So the table, in many ways, represents, it's akin to the altar that was in the temple. The table, we no longer have a temple, so our eating, it's like a ritual, sacrificial eating. But instead of being, in the temple, it's in all of our homes. Our homes, and that's actually there in the Torah. That one of the first, most important of all the sacrifices is the Paschal offering, the Paschal sacrifice, and the Korban Pesach was eaten in homes, in family groups. And so this, even though maybe the paradigm is the animal is slaughtered in the temple and it's placed on the altar and eaten by the priest in the temple, actually, all of that gets domesticated, and the Paschal sacrifice is eaten in family groups in our homes. And we no longer have the temple, we no longer have any of those animal sacrifices, but still our eating that we do, our sacred eating that we do on Sabbaths, on holidays, it's in place of that, or it embodies that. And so then some of the symbolism of the Sabbath table is symbolism of the temple. So there's always salt in all of the sacrifices in the temple. So there's salt on our table as well.
Why do you have to cover the challah before when?
So the answer to tell children is that way the challah won't be embarrassed.
That's what, like, Lauren, she said that to me, I'm like, what is it?
Yeah. One of my kids said, that makes no sense, because even if the challah can't see, it can still hear, you know. And I said, challah can't hear, you know, but it can see, like, you know, the story has some holes. So I think that the more substantial answer is that it's the food being brought to the table after Kiddush is made. And so it's on the table but covered, so that as soon as Kiddush is made, we can uncover it and then have the food on the table as though it were brought out once the Sabbath has been ushered in. I think that's sort of the choreography of the challah being covered for Kiddush.
Why can't you just bring the challah to the table?
Why don't we do that? I think it's like we want to have the immediacy. That's a good question.
Does it also just have something to do with the order of the blessings?
So maybe challah is more important. Maybe you should say Kiddush over the challah. So if we cover it, then it's clear that why we're not saying Kiddush over the challah. We're saying it over one instead. That's a piece of it. That also wouldn't quite answer why not just bring it out later or not say Kiddush on challah, right? Doesn't so. There's some the Talmud sort of works through the rituals of a meal. It's
Right, I heard also that it's something about like beautifying it. Like it's nice to have this beautiful cover that's special.
That's true. When you go to the next table, I mean, maybe we'll pivot to that as a segue. An additional, mitzvah, positive mitzvah to Shabbat. So Kiddush Friday night, Kiddush during the day, 3 meals. Certainly the first 2 should be meals with bread. The third meal probably should be with bread as well. So the third meal is some point in the afternoon, right? So the first meal is Friday night. The second meal is like lunch on Saturday, or like a brunch or whatever. And then the third meal is before sunset on Saturday. So in the summer, we would call that dinner. It's like 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. before, and then the sun is still in the sky. In the winter, it's called, we just finished lunch an hour ago while I'm eating again, but we want to have 3 meals on Shabbat, so we have a third meal on Shabbat even in the winter as well. If you're like really, really stuffed and it's like roast, eat, you don't have to eat anything else. But we got in this, we've been to our shul right on Saturday, right after Mincha, right after the afternoon tefillot on Saturday afternoon, we then go downstairs and have a light meal. We have rolls, we have some tuna salad, sometimes some beer, pasta salad, whatever. Yeah.
Why bread in particular, though? Why does it have to be?
Bread, that was, I think like in the ancient world, bread was, it served as in place of plates and in place of silverware. So you would have like a dish, something you would eat, whether meat or vegetable, whatever it was, and then you would eat it with bread. You would dip bread into it, and so to eat a meal on bread, meant bread was like the main thing that you ate and the main thing you ate with. So now that we no longer eat that way, so it's an interesting question. Maybe, there's some who say that we should displace the status of bread in our ritual lives because we just don't eat that much bread anymore. It's not quite that same. It doesn't have that role in our diet, but we tend to preserve these customs anyway, and so we'll have the bread in our Sabbath. It's a good question. And I would say bread also, it represents that real partnership between, we say the blessing of bread is hamotzi lechem min haaretz, you bless God who brings forth bread from the earth. It's also like, it's the farmers and the baker, bread does not actually grow from the earth, right? Wheat grows from the earth if you first clear land and plow and plant and reap and collect and winnow and thresh and sort and grind and knead and bake and like 11, right, 11 steps, you know, in making bread. It's incredible. It's that mix of human agency and culture with this sort of natural bounty that makes bread possible. So that it's so additional positive mitzvot of Shabbat include this called Kavod Shabbat and Oneg Shabbat. Kavod Shabbat, the honor of Shabbat, the dignity of Shabbat, is expressed in all the things we do before Shabbat to prepare for the day. So that means we clean our homes and we clean our bodies. We take showers, or we get a haircut. We polish our shoes if we need to. We make sure pick up our clothes in the dry cleaner. The house looks nice. We get flowers. We put a nice tablecloth on the table, and all done for the sake of giving honor to Shabbat. That it should be this royal guest that comes to our home once a week, this divine presence that descends in our community, and we act in a way to respect that by, again, in terms of how we get nice clothes, clean our bodies, room, etc. So in a Jewish home on Friday afternoon, there's a lot of bustle and hustle as everything's being put in the oven, and we're preparing good food and bountiful food, and we're cooking and chopping and cleaning and sweeping the floors, and everyone's taking showers, and calling parents and grandparents and all that. That's all an expression of Kavod Shabbat. The Talmud says that some of the greatest rabbis would not allow their wives to cook for Shabbat because they felt it was such an important mitzvah. They had to do it themselves. So of course they wouldn't do it. They had one to do it. I forget in the second Kedusha, the second chapter, they would roast the fish, whatever, cook the fish themselves. So there's enough work for everyone to have their share, but it's a tremendous mitzvah to sort of engage oneself in getting one's home ready and oneself ready. Okay, so it should be nice clothes, nice your special Shabbat soap. I don't know, whatever you like as you get ready for Shabbat. And special tablecloths. So, everything to make the house really, really beautiful. And we should also dress well, etc. Oneg Shabbat is that mitzvah of enjoying the Shabbat day itself. That it should be a pleasant, pleasurable day. That it's not a day of asceticism, not a day of sitting in the dark. There were certain versions of the Sabbath in ancient Judaism that felt, you should sit in the dark and not eat warm food and just be really, if you read about some of the way Shabbat was experienced in New England, in the 17th century, it's sort of this very austere day of solemn beauty. That's not really the Jewish Sabbath. Is a day of, it should be a day that we enjoy. The physical enjoyment of Shabbat is all for the sake of, this mitzvah that's supposed to be an enjoyable one. So we eat good food, and there are ways to there are halachic ways to have warm food, and we pursue those ways, and we should be comfortable and again very nice clothes for the sake of Shabbat, dignified clothing. And that's for all of. It's not we wear nice clothes because we went to shul. We wear nice clothes because it's Shabbat, and the entire day we should just be kind of dressed in a way that demonstrates that dignity or in the presence of royalty or something. Questions or anything so far? One more. Did we talk about candlelighting last week?
No, we just did fish.
Okay. Candlelighting is interesting. Candlelighting is not really mentioned in the Talmud as a mitzvah. What the Talmud discusses is the need for, as I mentioned, to have an enjoyable Shabbat. And the rabbis understood that an enjoyable Shabbat means you're not sitting in the dark, so that members of the household can't see one another, and you're not in the dark, so you're not tripping and hurting yourself. That part of having a pleasant day is that the home should be filled with light. So the practice developed to light candles before Shabbat begins, and that even in post-Talmudic times, a blessing became associated, a mitzvah blessing became associated. Sher Kasher said, thank us with the mitzvah of lighting candles. It's not technically a mitzvah to light the candles. The mitzvah is that we should light our homes. So if you can't light candles for some reason, you should, just make sure you have a light on. Okay, that's actually, the most important element. Actually, you have a light. You have some light somewhere on your home, a hallway light, or a light on your bathroom, or a light on your living room, so that your dining room, that you should be able to sit down for dinner and look at your members of your household in the eye, and go to the bathroom at night without tripping and killing yourself, right? That should be, again, the home should be a pleasant place on Shabbat, and that includes light. The Torah says, "Lo tivar eish b'chol mishpatim," you shall not have a fire burning in your home on Shabbat. So again, there were some of these ancient Jewish sects that felt that, okay, you sit in the dark on Shabbat. Our ancestors said, no, you just can't light the fire on Shabbat. You can have it burning on Shabbat as long as you don't touch it. So that's also, we're sort of demonstrating our faith in those sages who taught us the meaning of this biblical verse, that we are allowed to have fire burning in our home as long as we don't ignite it on Shabbat. So that's another advantage of it. It's another reason why we light the candles and we say the blessing to show that we're not like those Jews who have this fundamentalist, literal interpretation of that verse in the Torah. We understand that verse the way our sages taught us, the way the oral Torah teaches us that the meaning of that verse, that we just, when it's lit before Shabbat, we can keep it burning. And also, in doing so, then Shabbat becomes a very enjoyable day. So that's candle lighting. So the custom developed to sort of be as that would be the women's mitzvah. It's not really a women's mitzvah if there are men who are living without women, or like a single guy, like he should light his own candles. Yes.
So I was reading that book, The Radiance of Shabbos. Shabbos.
Okay.
The part about lighting the candles and stuff like that, and it's talking about how the woman of the house should light them, but if there is not one, then the men should, but how you can light it on behalf of your family and things like that. So, and then about your kids, if your kids are going to be staying somewhere for the full amount of time of Shabbat, then they can be blessed under that family versus if they're coming home after they go to Shabbat dinner at someone else's house, they walk home, then they should be a part of your blessing.
Interesting.
So like, how does that work? I guess
I think as you light candles, you have that in mind. I'm lighting for the people who are going to be here. But the reason why that dynamic works is it's not really about the lighting. It's about the
idea.
It's about the home should have light on Shabbat.
Okay.
Right, so that wherever your kids are, your hypothetical kids, wherever they may be, they're not stumbling around in the dark. So if they're at friends for Shabbat, they also have a light on, and if they come home after dinner, the light's on. Okay. So candles lit off on the side, or on the candlesticks on your table, but
it's just about who you're like thinking about what the purpose is behind
but
it.
you also have a light on the bathroom and a light on the hallway, and keep a light on the dining room so that.
And then the other part is that a lot of these.
And if you're going to shul Friday night davening, which is something that many communities women don't do, if you are going to shoot light in shul, you should also have a light in your home, because the point is, depending on the timing, right? You can light at home and then go to shul, but you might not make it in time, depending on maybe you will, maybe you won't. And maybe you don't feel safe leaving candles burning unattended if your house is empty, so maybe you put them in your sink or on your stove, someplace safe. Or you can light in shul so long as you also have light on at home. So you light the candles in shul and you say the bracha before tefillah prayers begin. You have in mind, when I'm lighting these candles and saying the blessing, also have in mind the fact that I have light on my kitchen, light on my bathroom at home. You do benefit from the light in shul, because after davening you go out and before you leave you see the light burning there, and that's nice, and you enjoy that, and that's a benefit from it. But really, you have your electric light that's on in your house that's actually the real mitzvah of making sure that your home is a place that is illuminated on Shabbat, so that you're getting comfortable and find your way.
Okay. And so then, the other part of it was that because women don't do certain things because of time, I'm sure you think this was something that women did because it doesn't take a lot of time or something? Is that like how it's in your home, you're in your home when you're doing it, which is
so the thing,
is that? I don't even
so what seems like an exception to that rule, is that you're saying?
Well, I guess I'm saying like it is like I feel like a central thing to do in your home, right? So then and like women are fundamentally put as like they're doing all this stuff in the home to help prepare, and making a home so they're not required to do these other mitzvahs. So is that why?
It could be. I think that there's a rule or assumption that women are exempt from what's called positive time-bound mitzvah. So any mitzvah to do something that only takes place at a certain time, women don't have to do those mitzvah. However, the problem with that rule is, I mean, it's there, it's in the Talmud, it's discussed in several places in the Talmud, but there are more exceptions than there are cases that fit the rule. In fact, every time I think it's mentioned in the Talmud, it's mentioned as, oh, but isn't this an exception to, yes, it is an exception, here's why. So there are actually more cases that don't fit the rule than fit the rule. So it's not very helpful in like predicting, I really love predictive value because there's so many exceptions. One of the exceptions actually is Kiddush. Kiddush is a positive time on mitzvah, and we're obligated to recite Kiddush or to hear Kiddush. So that's an exception to that rule, it's a positive time bound commitment. So lighting Shabbat candles also would be a positive time bound commitment, and women are nonetheless obligated to perform that mitzvah. So why? I don't know. So you could come up with all sorts of theories, and I would say if that works for you, that's great. You can write it up in your essay or publish it in your book, and that's great. I've just landed. She returned to Chicago from business trip. So I'm just let's see. Okay. Yes.
Is
Sorry, did I answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
the rationale for lighting candles on holidays exactly the same as Shabbat, or is there any additional
The
significance?
rationale for lighting candles on holidays is the same, maybe, yes. Yeah. I mean, the holidays is a little complicated. Holidays, we are allowed, unlike Shabbat, we'll get there eventually, we are allowed to transfer fire on a holiday. You can't ignite a fire on Yom Tov, you can transfer fire. So that changes slightly the way in which we would light Yom Tov candles, but we'll get there.
So-
Yeah, that's good on holidays.
So do you not light sometimes when there's a holiday that ends Friday night and Shabbos has started already, the holiday was going to be ending, like Rosh Hashanah, for example?
No, because you're allowed to light, you wouldn't light candles with a match. If Yom Tov goes into Shabbat, you would light your Shabbat candles from the existing flame. So you would either use like a 24-hour candle or a 48-hour.
From the 2 nights before?
No, from the night, meaning
Or from when the,
as Yom Tov is ending on Friday afternoon, I would take, because it's Yom Tov, you're allowed to light campfire, right? You're allowed to transfer fire on Yom Tov. So
Okay.
on Friday afternoon,
Before Shabbat.
exactly.
so there's
Friday
never a scenario where you're not lighting candles?
There's some people don't light candles. This is very rare, but some people don't light candles on the second day of Yom Tov if there is an electric light in the room, because you're only allowed to transfer a fire on Yom Tov if it's for the sake of Yom Tov. So you can cook on Yom Tov for a Yom Tov meal. You can't cook on Yom Tov for next week. You can't cook on Yom Tov for someone who's a Jewish who doesn't not having a Yom Tov meal. You can only cook on Yom Tov for a Yom Tov meal. You can only transfer fire if it's for a Yom Tov purpose. And if I'm sitting here in this room, I have 3 bright light bulbs right above me, 3 more over there, and 6 over there. You're telling me my Yom Tov is going to be somehow diminished if I don't light a little candle, tea light? So there are some who have that, and it's a very rare practice, so that it's not, the counter argument would be, the custom of celebrating Yom Tov with candles burning from a actual candle is a sufficient Yom Tov need that's going to justify my transfer of fire from the existing flame. So you transfer the fire, and then you have a little match, you just put it aside, let it burn out, you don't extinguish it. You take the match light from the existing flame, like a 24-hour candle or something, and then you light your Shabbat candle, and you put the match like on a tray or something, and it burns out.
Could you just put one candle to the
Yes.
next?
I have a question. So, when you light the candles, or when a woman lights the candles, they say the blessing after lighting the
Yes.
candles instead
Yes.
of before.
Yes.
I heard a couple of explanations. One being because if you say it first, then it's already Shabbat,
Yes.
so you can light them.
Yes, exactly.
But then I also heard that if a man is lighting the candles,
Yes.
he says the blessing before.
So the custom is that women
Yeah, and I think I heard it's because men actually welcome the Shabbos by going to shul, and women welcome the Shabbos by.
so a man who's going to go to shul, let's say he's lighting at home, he's going to go to shul and daven mincha, and then say Kabbalah Shabbat, he's not going to start his Shabbat until Kabbalah Shabbat. That's what literally Kabbalah Shabbat means. I'm accepting Shabbat upon myself when I say these words. That's what the Shabbat, Kabbalah Shabbat, service is about. So he's lighting candles when he's still at home, he's going to go extra shul, he's going to daven mitzvah. So his assumption is that I'm lighting candles now, but I'm not accepting Shabbat yet. So he should say the bracha the way any other bracha is done. First say the bracha and then do the mitzvah. So the mitzvah is I'm lighting candles, so there will be light in my home on Shabbat. I'm not accepting Shabbat now because I'm about to go to shul. Whereas it's very typical for women not to go to shul, and so they will wait until the 18 minutes before sunset and light candles at that moment, and will accept Shabbat times when they light candles, in which case they have to light first and then say the bracha, because once they say the bracha, Shabbat is upon them. A woman's going to go to shul, she should have in mind, I'm not accepting Shabbat, I'm going to accept Shabbat, at shul, like my husband or like men do. And on Yom Tov, when we're allowed to transfer fire, you should probably say the bracha and then transfer the fire. That was actually it was a woman who thought of that idea. It was become accepted 300 years ago, and it's become pretty accepted in order to halakha. It's one of the only one of a handful of halakhic discoveries made by women. And this one on Yom Tov, you should you could say the bracha first because you're allowed to transfer fire on Yom Tov even after, right? So.
Why do a lot of people cover their eyes while they sleep?
It's a custom that's developed. I think maybe that's also they cover their eyes because they since
light, the process of like getting light.
it's sort of you say.
You can't take pleasure from the light if you haven't said.
So something like that. It's a way to say the bracha and then immediately afterwards, right? Since typically you say the bracha and then you eat the thing, and you say the bracha and then you do the mitzvah right afterwards. And since she can't do that with lighting candles, she has to first light and then say the bracha. Let her at least cover her eyes when she says the bracha, so that as soon as she's done, she can then uncover her eyes and then benefit from the light. So that's great questions. Okay. Anything else? Okay.
So you can turn the lights for refrigerators?
Lights refrigerator should turn them on for sure. It depends on the refrigerator, yes. Some fancy ones have Shabbat modes.
Yeah, you tape it where sometimes the light.
You can tape a little button, the little magnets you can buy that go on the door that turn it off. Some of them have Shabbat modes that you can switch off. Some of them it's very easy to just let your light bulb. Keeping the refrigerator light from waiting.
I saw something on what was it? Maybe some kitchen appliance recently that had a Shabbat mode.
Yeah.
But it was like an oven or something.
Yeah.
And it was like a newer one and that you can take all the settings. I think it was a microwave, I don't know. It was something that I was like, this is pretty amazing. That they
Yeah,
have
no,
this.
a lot of fancy brands now have Shabbat modes, and you gotta question exactly how. Just because General Electric says this is a Shabbat compliant mode doesn't mean that it is. If I can find this, I don't know if I can. It's a quick, a 3-minute
Would that be
video.
the same though as like a slow cooker? Or like a crock pot thing when it goes off on its own?
Say it again?
Like how you can, if you're using a crock pot and it goes off on its own, you set it on a timer.
Yeah.
Is that fair game?
What do you mean?
Those have to be hextured, right? Sort of.
They have to be what? I'm sorry?
They have to be kind of hextured in a way.
Why? What do you mean by that?
There are certain appliances that have to be approved.
Why? No, not necessarily. It depends what.
If you're making chalk,
Yeah.
you're doing it in a slow cooker.
Yeah, if it goes off before it's done, you'll give food poisoning to everyone. That's not it, right? You have to, right? It has to-
Right, but so that's what I'm saying is how come the oven then isn't the same thing? If you put it in and you turn it on before, it's like the slow cooker.
We'll get there. We will get there. Do not worry. We'll have a lot of people. We'll spend a lot of time discussing what.
Just to clarify, if you can put your slow cooker on a timer, and if it goes off, it can go, as long as you're not the person turning it off, that's okay, right?
As long as you're done with it, though, that's. You wouldn't want to.
You don't want to be heating it, as long as it's done cooking.
As long as you're done with it, right? If you still need it, that's a problem, right? That's all. That's all I meant.
So that's what I was saying is wouldn't the same rules apply to anything then that if it can go off, you can set it with the intention of it not being.
I'm just looking to see. Okay, there's a very cute video, a very, very funny video about a refrigerator. So let me just quickly, if I can find it in 2 minutes. first. There's an Israeli like comedy troupe that does like very very short little like skits and videos about religious life. They're very called Androdos. This is the one. They do a very 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 funny like little one. I think really funny. There's a guy who is trying to make Kiddush and he opens up his refrigerator and lights on. He's trying to like pour it, the door open. It's funny because it's real, you know. it's I'm just gonna find it. Anyway, okay. I find it. If I find it, I'll share it later on a different occasion. But if you can, it's called it's a YouTube channel called Androdos. They're very very talented. Okay. One last thing for now, and that is the final mitzvah for Shabbat is Havdalah. Havdalah is like a parallel to Kiddush. It's the sanctification of the marking of the end of Shabbat. You know, just as Kiddush is the sanctification, the inauguration of the beginning of Shabbat. So it's like a parallel mitzvah to Kiddush, or it's maybe you can see it as like the Kiddush for the rest of the week. Okay? So Allah is recited at the end. So let's find it. Page 53. So the beginning of Havdalah is a series of verses talking about, trying to talk about salvation, about our hope for the week to come, about my picture that we're going into the week with confidence and joy, having Shabbat just ended, and then we say three blessings. So page 54. First blessing is the blessing on wine. We don't drink it right away. The person making Havdalah holds the wine. We don't drink it yet, so we drink it at the end. But it's one of the blessings. Okay. Second blessing is the blessing on spices. Water of spices at the end of Shabbat. It's maybe it's a consolation for Shabbat ending. Sort of smell something nice. There's a legend that there's a Neshama Yitera, an extra soul that we get on Shabbat, and as it leaves us when Shabbat ends, so to console us, we smell the fragrance. It's a blessing for fragrant spices. We say a bracha on a candle that's burning. The candle has to have at least 2 wicks. That's because Shabbat is over, so now we're back into the week of activity. We light fires now. Shabbat is over. We're creating, we're changing the world, and fire, like that power of fire exemplifies this human creative capacity. And so we say a blessing. It creates fire, creates the flame over us, significant flame, not just candle, but a flame, at least 2 wicks. And then we say a blessing on the act of separation itself. Baruch atah Hashem, bless you, Lord God, King of the universe, Hamavdil ben Kodesh l'Chol, who distinguishes between sacred and profane, sacred and normal, sacred and secular, ben or l'choshen, between light and darkness, ben Yisrael la'amim, between Israel and the other nations. That we have a special, we're different, and difference is great. In Yom HaShvi l'Sheish Shmei HaMaaseh, between the 7th day and the 6 days of action and creation. And they're about to begin now, they're about to do things. The Torah says 6 days you shall work. That's also a mitzvah. We're going to go out and shape the world as the work week begins. But we're recognizing there are differences. Everything isn't all the same. Baruch atah Hashem Hamavdil ben Kodesh l'Chol, bless you, God, who separates between holy and secular. And after we say that fourth blessing, we then drink the wine and extinguish the candle.
How much wine are we supposed to drink?
Havdalah is, I'll just show you. This is a set we use. You don't need a fancy set, you could, but again, the blessing of, this could be any glass or mug or whatever. So if you don't have this, the spices or the cloves and cinnamon, you could use tea bag, right? And then this is our multi-wick candle. If you don't have one like this, you can just take 2 candles and put it together. Right, one is the 2 wicks. For Abdullah, you should do most of the cut. So, 1 in grape juice.
Is it the same or only the person saying the should drink it?
I mean, whereas at Kiddush, it's more common to, a nice thing to like share someone with everybody, or everybody drinks some wine, and Abdullah, you're not like sitting down to eat, so really only one person drinks. So it's more typical. Abdullah.
Why do you have to drink that amount? Like, why? Like, can't you just have a sip if you're not in the mood for that much wine?
I don't know. I mean, Friday night, you can, it's just a cheekful. I mean, I think, we don't want saying brachot for no reason. You don't want to so just tasting it, why use that like substantially? You drink it substantially, then you can say the afterwards. So if you want to say an after bracha afterwards, you can say so here's just a sip. Maybe you're not obligated to say the after bracha, maybe you are, it's a little bit ambiguous. So like, why have all this down? Have a substantial amount. You said the bracha for a good reason. It's part of this ritual, it gives solemnity to the day. And afterwards, the after blessing should be said, and you've consumed an appropriate amount, but certainly you have to say an after blessing, so you've avoided any of those doubts. If it's not safe for you or pleasant for you to drink wine, then you can have, so there's grape juice certainly, and if that's not, I think I mentioned last week, there was last class, someone who had gestational diabetes, she couldn't have wine, she couldn't have grape juice. She celebrated Passover with 4 cups of tea, right? Right, tea is the chamar medina, it's the drink of the land. It's a drink that people drink even when they're not thirsty as a way of, a culturally significant beverage. And so tea is certainly, or coffee is certainly not. Okay.
So just before
Yeah.
the order again is say the blessing for the wine, not drink the wine though,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Spices?
say the blessing for the spices, pass them around.
Yes. Although really it's not, the truth is only one person has to smell and then one person may take his blessing, but
And then blessing for the candle, like the candle.
candles lit at the beginning, so it's sort of there the whole time, and then, so if you're by yourself, it's not, you can you should hold it, if I were by myself, I would hold the candle in my hand so it doesn't fall and set the house on fire. I would hold this while I'm reciting the declaration, I'd say the word Pregafen, I would put it down, I would lift up this, say the blessing, and then smell, I would put it down, I would, say the blessing on the candle. The custom is to work on our fingernails, either right before or right after we say the blessing, or both, to, again, we're benefiting from the light, we're seeing the light reflected in our nails as the week begins, and then I pick up the candles, the cup, and say the final blessing, the blessing of the actual Havdalah, the separation blessing, and then drink, pour a little bit into the thing, and extinguish it. We do this every week in Shul, it's Saturday night, so you should come and watch and participate with us.
You're allowed to light the candle
Because Shabbat's over by
because
the...
it's over by the time you start.
Yes.
Okay.
And when you've said Mariv, which Mariv on Saturday night, that's already the weekday Mariv, because Shabbat's dark, you're saying Mariv, it's the weekday Mariv. There's a little addition to one of the blessings, the fourth blessing in the Amidah for Saturday Mariv, which actually is also a blessing of Havdalah. So you've already said that.
Okay.
So you've already said Shabbat's over for me. So you're allowed to drive home and then make Havdalah. You're allowed to light the candle, light the Havdalah candle, etc. If you haven't said Mariv, Saturday night, you should say just Baruch Hamavdid V'Kodesh L'Chol. Blessed is the one who separates between sacred and profane, sacred and secular. And once you say that, then you can, again, drive home or light the Havdalah candle and do whatever you have to do.
That one looks new.
It's relatively new. It sort of burns down. Next class we'll start the discussion of all of the negative prohibitions of Shabbat. And just as an orientation, a thing to keep in mind, a preface, all of those negative prohibitions are for the purpose of creating a space for the positive goals that we want to accomplish on Shabbat. If we're not writing and planting and whatever, and cutting and doing and making and selling and buying, then we in that way we carve out and push out a sanctuary in time in which these positive mitzvot can really take root and flourish, and we have a really sacred day, a joyous day, a day of community and family and intimacy with God and intimacy with our friends and family, and that quality time requires quantity time. And the prohibitions all create that quantity of time that is free from all of the labor and the distractions of the work week, and then really special things can happen. So we can sometimes you can get a little bit lost in the nitty, if I take this, then I can put the children in the oven, I can put in, I take out, the warming tray, and then, it can be very overwhelming, or it is details and details of the details and details of the details of the details, but it's all for the purpose of carving out this sanctuary in time, this palace in time, where really special things can happen. And again, you need that quantity of time altogether to actually make something special of it. So that's all of that. So we'll start that the next class. We'll schedule the next class. Thanks for trekking out to my apartment. Appreciate that. Next class will be not meet next week. The week of the I can meet Monday the 25th, but it's gonna have to be back here at my apartment. So we can do 8:45 again. Is that all right?
Huh?
8:45 on Monday the 25th. Thank you.
I don't think I can.
Which is better for you?
Not Thursday of that week either, but otherwise,
Sorry, so Tuesday though?
that would work for me.
So Tuesday then, is that all right? Tuesday the 26th,
Same time?
8:45, yeah.
Same place?
Same place, please, thank you.
Tuesday, 26th, 8:45. All right. So,
Great. Great. All right, guys, thanks for coming over.
thank you.
Thank you.